Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Stephanie and I appreciate y'all stopping by. In this video, I have 7 brand new Easter and spring themed decor DIYs to share that are not only extremely easy to make, but will also bring a fresh and colorful touch of springtime magic to your home. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, like this video if you enjoy it, and leave me a comment below letting me know which project is your favorite. Let's go ahead and hop into DIY number 1. For this project, I used 20 of these large wooden beads from Amazon and used Waverly Antique Wax to stain them. I also used 8 of these medium-sized wooden beads from Amazon and used Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster and gave them 2 good coats. Next, I used this bunny head pick that I picked up on sale at Hobby Lobby and started by cutting off the stem as close to the base as possible, then sanded it until it was flush and smooth. I took a 5/32 drill bit and drilled a hole in the top of the bunny in between the ears. I then used Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster and gave the bunny 2 good coats. Once that was dry, I used Waverly chalk paint in the color truffle to paint the bunny's little nose and bow tie with 2 good coats. Next, I made a tassel out of some jute twine by wrapping it around my hand about 20 to 25 times. I took a large upholstery needle and attached it to the end of some more of the jute twine, then fed the needle through the top of the tassel and pulled it to the other end of the twine and tied it off in a double knot. Once I had the tassel attached, I placed the wooden beads onto the twine in the order of 3 large dark brown beads followed by 1 medium white bead and continued to repeat this pattern until I had all of the beads strung onto the twine. After I had all of the beads in place, I fed the jute through the back of the bunny and pulled it tight against the last white bead and tied it in a double knot to secure it in place, then cut off the excess jute. Then to finish up this project, I made a simple shoestring bow using this dark brown nylon ribbon from Hobby Lobby and used hot glue to attach it to the top of the tassel, and this adorable little bunny beaded garland is finished. I think this turned out super cute. I love the mix of the browns and the white in this garland, and I think it would make a wonderful addition to a tiered tray or in a vignette. Hopping right along to DIY number 2. For this project, I used this wooden hanging carrot from the Dollar Tree and started by removing the jute hanger, then used Waverly Antique Wax to stain the entire carrot front and back. Once that was dry, I used Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster along with a stencil brush from the Dollar Tree and heavily dry brushed the entire carrot front and back. I then took Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin and a stencil brush and again heavily dry brushed the front and back of the carrot minus the greenery at the top. Next, I took Waverly chalk paint in the color moss and a stencil brush and heavily dry brushed the front and back of the top of the carrot. Once the carrot was completely dry, I took some more of the Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster along with the stencil brush and went back over the entire carrot to blend all of the colors together. I also used one of these styrofoam cones from the Dollar Tree and measured 4 inches from the top and used a bread knife to carefully cut off the top of the cone. I then cut the top half of the cone in half long ways. Next, I took some of this jute twine from Walmart and wrapped 1/2 of the cone using hot glue as needed to secure it in place. I wanted the tip of the cone to be more pointed, so I added more jute until I was happy with the way it looked. I then used hot glue to attach the cone to the bottom of the front of the carrot with the point facing downwards towards the tip of the carrot. To make the arrangement for the mini carrot, I used these 3 frosted greenery picks from the Dollar Tree. I started by cutting all of the stems apart so that I could place them individually and created the base of the arrangement by placing all of the greenery pieces that did not have any flowers on them first. Next, I placed all of the pieces with the purple flowers into the arrangement, mixing them in with the greenery. Finally, I placed all of the pieces with the yellow flowers into the arrangement and fluffed up all the pieces until it was full, and I was happy with the way it looked. I then took 3 of these grapevine carrots that I picked up at Walmart and used hot glue to attach a piece of a skewer stick to the bottom back side of each of the carrots. After I had the skewers attached to the carrots, I placed them in the arrangement with 1 in the center and 1 on each side at varying heights. Next, I took this wooden Happy Easter cutout from this pack that I picked up on sale at Hobby Lobby and gave it one coat of Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster on the front and back, leaving the sides the natural wood color. Once the paint was dry, I used hot glue to attach a skewer stick to the bottom of the cutout and placed it on the left side of the arrangement, nestled down in the florals. Then to finish up this project, I made a jute twine bow, then used hot glue to attach it to the top of the mini carrot. I then added a new hanger by feeding the ends of some jute through the holes at the top of the carrot and tying each end in a knot on the front side, and this one is finished. I really love how this piece turned out. I know it had a lot of steps to get to this point, but I think the process was worth it in the end. Now on to DIY number 3. For this project, I used this large wooden bunny shelf sitter that I picked up at the Dollar Tree and started by using Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster to give it 2 good coats. Next, I used Waverly chalk paint in the color hazelnut along with the stencil brush from the Dollar Tree to dry brush the entire bunny front and back. Once that was dry, I took some more Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster along with the stencil brush and used it to tone down the hazelnut color and blend it together to look more like a wood grain. I also used the middle trim out of this pack of burlap trim from the Dollar Tree. I wrapped the trim around the bunny's neck and cut it to size, then used hot glue to attach it to the neck off to the right side just below the ears. Finally, I took this handmade burlap flower that I thrifted and used hot glue to attach it to the right side of the bunny underneath where I attached the trim, and this one is finished. I know this was a super quick and easy project, but I love the way that it turned out, and it fits perfectly in with both my neutral and rustic Easter decor. Next up, DIY number 4. For this project, I used this large foam egg and these 2 medium-sized eggs, all from the Dollar Tree. I started by removing the hangers from each of the eggs and peeling off all of the glitter beads and fuzz. To wrap the large egg, I used this wool ease yarn in the color Fisherman that I picked up at Walmart and used hot glue as needed to secure it in place. I used this Burnette yarn in the color Sonoma, also from Walmart, to wrap one of the medium-sized eggs using hot glue as needed to secure it in place. For the last medium-sized egg, I wrapped it with some of this black velvet yarn from the Dollar Tree, again using hot glue as needed to secure it in place. To make the ears for the bunnies, I traced out this set of rabbit ears onto some regular printer paper and cut it out. I then placed it down onto some scrap cardboard and traced around them 3 times and carefully cut them out. Working with one set of ears at a time, I cut them apart in the middle and used hot glue to wrap each set with the yarn that I used to wrap the eggs. To attach the ears to the top of the bunny, I placed some hot glue along the bottom edge of one of the ears and placed it on top of the egg. I then repeated this step to attach the other ear. Once I had both of the ears attached, I decided to go back around the base of the ears with more of the yarn to hide the seam, again using hot glue as needed to secure it in place. Then to finish up this bunny, I took one of these white bunny tails from this pack that I picked up at the Dollar Tree and used hot glue to attach it to the back of the bunny at the bottom, and this little bunny is finished. I then repeated these steps to attach the ears and the tails to the other 2 bunnies, and this whole project is finished. I think this trio of bunnies turned out absolutely adorable. They were extremely easy to make, but it did take a little bit of time to wrap the eggs in the ears, but I think it was well worth it. Hopping on into DIY number 5. For this project, I used one of these hanging wood round signs from the Dollar Tree and started by removing the hanger, then used Waverly antique wax to stain the front and back. I also used some of this natural burlap ribbon that I picked up at Walmart. I cut a piece of the burlap large enough to fold in half and still be able to cover the front of the wood. Once I had the burlap piece ready, I began working in sections and applied hot glue around the edge of the wood round and pressed the burlap piece in place, making sure that both pieces were secured to the wood. I continued to hot glue the burlap to the wood until I had it fully attached. I then took a sharp pair of scissors and cut off the excess burlap hanging over the edges as close to the wood as possible. Next, I took another piece of the burlap that was a little bit smaller than the first piece and again folded it in half, but this time I placed it in the center of the wood round and used hot glue to attach just the sides and the bottom to the wood to create an open pocket. Again, I made sure that both pieces of the burlap was secured to the wood and cut off the excess flush with the sides. I then took this decorative nautical rope from the Dollar Tree and used hot glue to attach it around the outside edge of the wood round, making sure the seam was at the bottom below the pocket. I took a piece of jute twine and tied the ends in a knot, then used hot glue to attach it to the back of the wood round at the top to create the hanger. Next, I used this metal spring word from a 3-pack of metal words that I picked up a couple years ago from the Dollar Tree. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster along with the sponge brush and gave the word several good coats using a pouncing motion and making sure to let it fully dry between coats. Once it was completely dry, I used this Mod Podge Gloss Clear acrylic sealer and gave it 2 good coats to help seal the paint. Then, after the word was completely dry, I used hot glue to attach it to the right side of the round just below the lip of the pocket. To decorate this hanging pocket, I used a few pieces of this lavender pick that I had left over in my stash from a previous project, as well as this smaller lavender pick. Both of these picks did come from Walmart. I cut the picks apart and started arranging them inside the pocket, placing the smaller lavender picks first as the background pieces, making sure to fan them out so that it filled out the pocket and fluff them up where it was needed. Once I was happy with the way the small lavender picks looked, I started placing the larger lavender stems one at a time randomly in the arrangement at varying heights. To finish up the arrangement, I took a few of the extra greenery pieces from the larger lavender stems and attached them to smaller stem pieces and placed them in the arrangement to help fill it out. Then, to add the final touch to this project, I took this purple butterfly from this pack of butterflies that I picked up at Hobby Lobby and stuck it down in the arrangement on the left side and bent the wire so that it looked like it was flying across the lavender, and this one is finished. I'm pretty happy with the way this one turned out. I love the purple of the lavender and the butterfly, probably because it's my favorite color, but I think it mixed with the burlap, it just makes it pop. Let's move on to DIY number 6. For this project, I used this wooden house shape that is 6 inches wide and 7 inches tall, along with this larger house shape that is 5 inches wide and 10 inches tall that I cut out of some 2-inch thick scrap wood that I had on hand. I started by using some wood glue to attach the short house to the front of the tall house, making sure to line up the points of both houses to assemble the church and set it aside to dry for several hours. I also used 4 of these wooden planks from this pack that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. Once the glue on the church had set up, I placed one of the wood planks down on the top right side of the roof of the small house and marked out how long and wide I wanted that side of the roof to be. Next, I placed another one of the planks on the left side of the roof, overlapping the first plank so that it made an even point and marked where I needed to cut. I then repeated these steps to mark the remaining 2 planks for the roof of the tall house and cut them all to size. Once I had the 4 pieces cut, I used Waverly Antique Wax to stain the fronts and backs of all pieces. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster to paint the church and gave it about 3 good coats. Once all of the paint and stain was completely dry, I used wood glue along with just a little bit of hot glue to attach the right side of the roof on the bottom house, and then again using a combination of wood glue and hot glue, attach the left side of the roof, making sure it was overlapping the right side just enough so that it made an even point, and cleaned up any excess glue. I then repeated this step to attach the 2 roof pieces to the very top of the church. Next, I took this square piece of scrap wood that I found in my stash and, leaving it just as it was, used hot glue to attach it to the front of the church at the bottom to create a door. I also used this laser cut cross from this pack of laser cut craft icons that I picked up at the Dollar Tree and used small dabs of hot glue to attach it right above the peak of the small house on the front of the top section of the church. To add a little more embellishment to this piece, I used hot glue to attach the end of some jute twine to the back of the church and wrapped it around the front 3 times, then used more hot glue to secure it to the back and cut off the excess. Then, to finish up this project, I made a simple shoestring bow from the jute twine and used hot glue to attach it to the front of the church in the center of the wrapped jute and trimmed up the tails, and that's it for this one. Y'all, this turned out so much better than I could have ever expected. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and it reminds me of a white little old country church that we have here in our small country town. I think this one may just be my favorite out of all of today's projects. And last but not least, DIY number 7. For this project, I started with this 15-inch piece of wood and 2 of these 4.5-inch pieces of wood that I cut from some scrap wood that I had in my stash. To assemble the cross, I used wood glue to attach one of the 4.5-inch pieces to the right side of the 15-inch piece about 4 inches from the top. I then used wood glue to attach the other 4.5-inch piece to the left side of the 15-inch piece, again about 4 inches from the top, making sure it was straight across from the other piece on the right. After setting it aside for a few hours so that the glue could set up, I used Minwax wood finish in the color red oak to stain the cross. For this project, I also used this 18-inch grapevine wreath along with 5 of these large white lilies, this entire baby's breath pick, and this entire pick of small and medium white lilies, all of which I got on sale at Hobby Lobby. I started by placing 2 of the large white lilies on the left side of the wreath, curving around the bottom. I then placed 3 more of the large white lilies going in the opposite direction up the wreath. Once I had all the large lilies in place, I began placing the smaller lilies around them to fill in any of the empty spaces and made sure they were all going in the same direction around the bottom of the wreath. I then repeated this step on the top of the wreath, filling in between the 3 larger lilies going in the same direction towards the top of the wreath. After I had all of the lilies in place, I placed the pieces of the baby's breath in the arrangement along the bottom half of the wreath, going in the same direction as the lilies, and used them to fill in any of the sparse areas. Just like before, I repeated this process to add the baby's breath to the top half of the wreath, filling in any empty areas. Next, I stapled 2 zip ties on the back of the cross, one at the top and one at the bottom, so that I could easily attach it to the wreath. Once I had the cross placed on the right side of the wreath exactly how I wanted it, I fed the zip tie through the vines on the bottom of the wreath and pulled the zip tie nice and tight to secure it in place. I then repeated this step to attach the top of the cross to the top of the wreath, making sure it was hanging straight, and cut off the excess zip ties on the back. Off camera, I made this large bow using some thick burlap ribbon from Hobby Lobby that I picked up on sale at Christmas and some of the wired jute ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I placed a piece of floral wire through the zip tie on the back of the bow so that I could easily attach it to the wreath. I placed the bow on the left side of the wreath in the open area between the 2 floral arrangements and fed the floral wire through the vines of the wreath and twisted it together on the back side to secure it in place and cut off the excess wire. To finish up this project, I took some of this white muslin fabric that I picked up at Walmart and ripped off a strip that is roughly 1.5 inches wide and 26 inches long, then draped it across the arms of the cross, letting it hang down in a V shape in the middle. Since I did not want this fabric to move, I used a small dab of hot glue in the center of the cross to help hold it in place. I then ripped the end of the fabric on the right side of the cross so that it was hanging at roughly the same height as the other side, and this one is finished. Y'all, I think this wreath turned out absolutely stunning. I don't know if it's the simplicity of it or if it's the neutral colors that really allow the white shades of the lilies and the fabric to pop, but something about this wreath is really pleasing to the eye. And that's it for all of today's Easter and spring themed decor DIYs. I hope y'all enjoyed watching and were inspired to create some of these projects for your own home. Which one of these projects is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. I honestly had such a hard time choosing a favorite because I really do love all of them, but I think the little white church has my whole heart. I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up as it really does help me out here on YouTube. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, what are you waiting for? Click that button and stick around for a little while. I have tons of fun projects on the way. I'll see y'all next time.